Some people feel most alive in the quiet corners of their own homes. Not because they're broken, not because they're afraid, but because something about the outside world feels fundamentally wrong for them. While everyone else is chasing experiences in crowded places, they've discovered something the rest of us are too distracted to notice. That peace isn't found in movement. It's found in stillness. And what if the people we call hermits, homebodies, recluses, what if they're not missing out on life? What if they've simply found a different way to live it? Let me paint you a picture you'll recognize. You're comfortable at home. The world outside is moving at its usual frantic pace, people rushing, competing, performing, and you're here, in your space, where the noise can't reach you. Then someone asks, why don't you go out more? That question lands with weight, not as curiosity, as judgment. Like there's something wrong with you for choosing this, for preferring your own company to the chaos of crowds, for finding more meaning in a quiet afternoon than a loud party. So you smile, give them the easy answer, I just like being home, and hope they'll leave it alone. Sometimes they do, other times they push, suggestions, invitations, well-meaning attempts to fix you, to make you normal, to pull you into a world that's never felt quite right. And here's what they don't understand. You're not hiding from life, you're protecting something they can't see, something the outside world would consume if you let it. The misunderstood temperament. Society has a narrative about people like you, that you're antisocial, depressed, missing out, that a life spent mostly at home is somehow a wasted life. But what if that narrative is wrong? History is filled with people who chose solitude and changed the world from inside their rooms. Emily Dickinson wrote nearly 1,800 poems without ever leaving her house. Isaac Newton developed calculus during plague isolation. The greatest thinkers, artists, and innovators often worked in silence, away from the world's noise. They weren't avoiding life, they were creating it. But in today's world, solitude doesn't look like enlightenment anymore. It looks like failure, like you're not trying hard enough, like you're letting opportunities pass by. The truth, you're just operating on a different frequency, one the modern world doesn't know how to measure. The constant pressure. Every social media post shows people out there, traveling, partying, networking, living their best life. And underneath every photo is an implicit message. This is what happiness looks like. If you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong. So you start wondering, am I broken? Am I missing something essential? Should I force myself to enjoy things that drain me? You've tried, God knows you've tried. You've gone to the gatherings, matched the energy, performed the enthusiasm, and every time you walked away feeling more exhausted than before. Not because the events were bad, but because you were spending energy pretending to be someone you're not. So what's actually happening here? What makes some people thrive in solitude while others wither? The internal world hypothesis. Research shows that people who love staying home often have extraordinarily active internal worlds. Their imagination, ideas, and emotional landscape are vivid, complex, rich with detail. Psychologists call this high internal self-presence, the ability to feel more connected to your inner world than the outer one. For you, happiness doesn't require external stimulation. You can stare out a window, sip coffee, watch rain fall, and experience a kind of fulfillment that others chase across continents. Your mind is a studio, a laboratory, a sanctuary, and you don't need crowds to feel alive because the world inside you is already teeming with life. This isn't escapism, it's where you actually live. The energy management framework. Here's what most people get wrong. They assume homebodies are all introverts. That's not accurate. Even extroverts need home to recharge. This isn't about introversion versus extroversion. It's about energy management, understanding where your energy is preserved and where it's drained. For you, social situations aren't just tiring, they're expensive. Each interaction requires emotional currency, small talk, performance, managing how others perceive you, reading social cues, maintaining the mask. At home, those costs disappear. You're not performing, you're existing, and existence without performance is the most restful state a human can achieve. The overstimulation factor. The modern world is designed for constant stimulation, noise, lights, movement, information streaming at you from every direction. For some people, this is energizing. For others, particularly those with heightened sensitivity, it's overwhelming. Your nervous system isn't weak, it's finely tuned. It picks up on subtleties others miss, the tension in someone's voice, the energy shift in a room, the emotional undertones beneath surface conversations. This sensitivity is a gift, but it comes with a cost. The world feels louder, faster, more chaotic than it does for most people. Home isn't just comfortable, it's the only place where your nervous system can settle, where the static quiets, where you can finally hear yourself think. The trust paradox. Here's something deeper. Many people who love home have learned, often through painful experience, that the outside world isn't always safe. Not physically unsafe, emotionally unsafe. Maybe it was a friendship that shattered, a moment when your feelings were too big for others to hold, a time when vulnerability was met with judgment instead of understanding. So you built a sanctuary, a place where you don't have to apologize for who you are, where your intensity isn't too much, where your silence isn't awkward. You're not antisocial, you're selectively social. You don't open up to everyone because you've learned that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Your heart may appear guarded, but once you love someone, once you decide they're safe, you love with an intensity most people never experience. The archival mind. Here's where it gets interesting. Your brain works like an archivist, not a librarian. An archive requires external context to create meaning. A library preserves the complete story. Your mind archives experiences, filing them as evidence of patterns. Rude cashier, filed as, outside world can be hostile. Someone doesn't wave back, filed as, social interactions carry rejection risk. Awkward party experience, filed as, I don't belong in these spaces. Even neutral or positive experiences can be misinterpreted when viewed through the lens of accumulated evidence. Your brain isn't being irrational. It's protecting you based on the data it's collected. The problem, the data set is incomplete, biased toward negative experiences because those are the ones that felt threatening. And over time, this creates a narrative. The outside is dangerous, home is safe, stay. So what happens when home becomes your entire world? The beautiful consequences. Let's start with what's actually beautiful about this lifestyle, because contrary to popular belief, not all consequences are negative. Deep self-knowledge, you understand yourself with unusual clarity. You know what drains you, what nourishes you, what you actually value versus what society says you should value. Most people never achieve this level of self-awareness. They're too distracted by external noise to hear their internal voice. Authentic relationships. Your relationships, though few, are profound. You don't collect acquaintances. You cultivate connections. The people in your life matter deeply because you've chosen them carefully. You notice things others miss, the words someone doesn't say, the pain they're hiding, the strength in their silence. You understand emotions through pauses, not just words. Creative depth. Your solitude isn't empty. It's fertile ground for ideas, reading, writing, creating, building something that reflects who you truly are. History's greatest works weren't created at parties. They were created in quiet rooms by people who valued depth over distraction. The concerning consequences. But there are costs, and pretending they don't exist doesn't help anyone. Social atrophy. Social skills, like any skill, require practice. The longer you stay home, the rustier those skills become, not because you've forgotten how to interact, but because the anxiety around it increases. What used to be mildly uncomfortable becomes genuinely difficult. Temporal collapse. Without external structure, work, appointments, social commitments, time stops having shape. Days blur, weeks vanish, months slip past unremarked. You're not living in time anymore. You're living in a loop, and that loop makes the world outside feel increasingly alien. Identity ossification. Here's the most subtle danger. At some point, I prefer staying home becomes I am someone who stays home. It shifts from preference to identity, and once it's identity, leaving feels like betraying yourself. The loneliness paradox. Solitude and loneliness aren't the same thing. Solitude is chosen, loneliness is not. You can be alone without being lonely, but you can also be lonely while preferring solitude, and that's a particularly painful state, wanting connection, but being unable to tolerate the forms of connection the world offers. Here's what changes everything. The question isn't whether staying home is right or wrong, it's whether your choice is expanding you or shrinking you. Are you staying home because it allows you to be more of yourself, or because you're afraid of what the world might see? Is your solitude generative, producing art, ideas, growth, meaning, or is it protective, keeping you safe but stagnant? Emily Dickinson stayed home and wrote poetry that changed literature. That's generative solitude. But there's another version, where home becomes a cage disguised as comfort, where the walls that once protected you now prevent you from growing. The difference isn't the behavior, it's the intention behind it. If your isolation is conscious, if you're building something, creating something, becoming someone you're proud of, then you're not hiding, you're living with intention. But if you're staying home because leaving feels impossible, if you can't remember the last time you felt genuinely alive, if every day feels like the one before it, then it's time to ask a harder question: am I protecting my peace or avoiding my life? So how do you know which version you're living? And if you're in the cage version, how do you get out? Solution 1: the energy audit. Track your energy for 1 week, not what you do, how you feel. When do you feel most alive, most yourself, most creative, most at peace? If those moments are all at home, that's valuable data. Your preference isn't pathology, it's information. But if those moments don't exist anywhere, if you're just existing, not living, that's different information. That suggests depression or avoidance, not preference. Solution 2: the creative test. Are you producing anything, creating anything, building anything? Solitude without output is just waiting. Generative solitude transforms your internal world into external contributions. You don't have to write novels or paint masterpieces, but you should be doing something that matters to you, something that uses the time and space and silence you've protected. If you're not, ask yourself, what am I protecting this space for? Solution 3: the connection inventory. List the people who genuinely matter to you, the ones you'd be there for in a crisis, the ones who understand you. How many are there? Are those relationships maintained? Do they know you care? Quality over quantity is real, but if your number is 0, if you've isolated so completely that no one really knows you anymore, that's concerning. You can be selective about connection without being disconnected entirely. Solution 4: the exposure experiment. If leaving home feels difficult, practice in small doses, not to fix yourself, to gather new data. Go to a quiet coffee shop for 30 minutes, sit in a park, walk around your neighborhood without headphones. The goal isn't to love it. The goal is to update your brain's archive with evidence that the outside isn't as dangerous as it believes. Each safe exposure weakens the avoidance pattern. Each survived moment rewrites the narrative. Solution 5: reframe your narrative. Stop calling yourself a homebody like it's a limitation. Reframe it as a strength. I require less external stimulation to feel fulfilled. I have a rich internal world. I'm selective about how I spend my social energy. Language shapes identity. If you describe yourself as broken, you'll feel broken. If you describe yourself as intentional, you'll feel empowered. Solution 6: create hybrid spaces. You don't have to choose between total isolation and constant socializing. Most people who love home do best with controlled exposure. Find your third space, a quiet library corner, a small cafe where you can work without pressure to interact, a walking trail where you see people but don't have to talk to them. These spaces let you be around humanity without the performance cost of full social engagement. Here's what I want you to understand. Your love of home isn't a flaw, it's a feature. The world needs people who can sit in silence and find meaning there, who can think deeply instead of reacting quickly, who can observe rather than perform. But the world also needs you visible, not performing, not pretending, but present. Because your quiet has power, your sensitivity is strength, your preference for depth over distraction is exactly what a shallow world is missing. The question isn't whether you should leave your sanctuary. It's whether your sanctuary is helping you become more of who you are or preventing you from becoming who you could be. If home is where you're building something beautiful, ideas, art, understanding, a life that reflects your values, then stay, create, build. The world will receive your contributions whether you deliver them in person or not. But if home has become a hiding place, if you're protecting yourself from a world you've decided is too dangerous to engage with, then maybe it's time to crack the door open. Not to abandon your sanctuary, but to remind yourself that you're allowed to exist outside it too. You don't have to love crowds or parties or constant noise. You don't have to be anyone but yourself. You just have to decide, am I living here or am I hiding here? Because peace is a sanctuary, but a cage, no matter how comfortable, is still a cage. If this resonated with you, the next video explores why some people never start anything and how potential becomes a trap when it's never tested. It might be exactly what you need to hear.